journalist who has been shot dead in West Bank in Palestine. She was working for Al Jazeera television. Her name, I'm going to tell you. Israeli forces have shot dead Al Jazeera journalist Shirin Abu Akleh in the occupied West Bank. This morning, according to the Palestinian Health Ministry, confirmed to the global media that Akleh, a long-time TV correspondent for Al Jazeera Arabic, was killed on Wednesday while covering Israeli army raids in the city of Jenin in the northern occupied West Bank. Being a journalist, we are in heavy heart to declare this kind of journalist collapse while working. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Rashid Kanchan. Let me welcome all of you to tonight's late edition program. I'll have a terrific panel tonight. Let me introduce all my guests. Mr. Norman Barnes, he's the founder, president and CEO of N3 Global Solution. He will join me from Washington, D.C., United States of America. Mr. Mark Finard, he's the head of arms proliferation at the Geneva Center for Security Policy, GCSP. He will join us from Geneva, Switzerland. Ms. Ivita Swedlova, she is the founder, president and global biodiversity protection organization. She will join us from Paris, France. Mr. Mehi Achili, he is the expert researcher of CRITS International, the Center for Research and Information for Disarmament and Security, CRITS. He will join us from Paris, France. Mr. Marius Dragomir, he is the director of the Center for Media Data and Society, CMDS. He will join us from Vienna, Australia. And Mr. Gulshan Pereira, he is a foreign direct investment specialist. He will join us from Colombo, Sri Lanka. And in his studio, I have two distinguished guests. Professor Dr. Shahab Enam Khan, he is the International Affairs Specialist and Professor, International Affairs Division, Jahangirnagar University. And Shibli Islam, he is the Assistant Professor, Rajshahi University. This is my tonight's panel. Let me start with Shibli Islam. We will be talking tonight recent global economy. Example is Sri Lanka, and Russia-Ukraine war impact on global economy. What is your perspective to describe the whole situation happening in all over the world?
Well, thank you so much for calling me. I'm absolutely delighted to be here. The thing is that when Putin invaded Russia, when Russia invaded Ukraine, I think the Russian forces, they didn't realize the kind of resistance that they will face in Ukraine. And NATO is expanding. So when President Zelensky of Ukraine, he decided to join NATO, then in retaliation, basically Russia invaded Ukraine. But what happened over there, I think it's the Russians never thought that there will be so much resistance from Ukraine. I think it's an intelligence failure, because they thought that the Russian people of Russian origin in Ukraine, they will embrace the occupying forces with open arm, which didn't happen. As well as Putin himself crippled the Russian economy, because back in February to May, in this 3 to 4 months, Russian economy collapsed. Every equity price that came down to 95%. So that is the problem that we are facing right now. Now Finland and Sweden, which have larger border with Russia, now they are deciding that they're going to join NATO. So NATO has a common purpose, and all democratic societies, and they will, if somebody is attacked, they will retaliate collectively. Finland has a huge border with Russia. When President Putin first, before attacking Ukraine, he actually said that he will, if any, states that has borders with Russia and they join NATO, then he will consider it, he will not, take it lightly, and he can attack. But when they attacked Ukraine, then I think the resistance that is going on from the Ukrainian forces, and for a country of 43 million people, and just been occupied, with an invasion force of 150,000 soldiers, I think it's not practical because they're facing the resistance. And how
Mr.
Russian economy...
Mr. Shibli, can I interrupt you for a moment?
Please.
People thought, or media thought, or other global leaders thought that Russia will take very little time to invade or to complete the invasion in Ukraine within a week, but they are taking months.
Well, the two problems that I realized that Russian has the belief, they have the trust, they have the capability to invade Ukraine or occupy Ukraine within 1 month or even by 1 week, and the Russian Ukrainians brothers of Russian origin, they will embrace with open arms, but they didn't embrace with open arm. The occupying forces are feeling resistance in Ukraine. Most importantly, Mr. Putin is feeling the feeling the pinch. The thing is that feeling the heat in the region, and most importantly, Russia always has this bad intention to expand, and ill motive to expand, and at the same time, the Ukrainian Russian intelligence agencies like FSB is leaking information to Ukrainian people because they consider themselves from the same origin. So they are facing the resistance, and with even with the mercenaries in the city, Zelensky is still away, getting away. So Ukrainian President Zelensky is getting away, and there is no way back for Putin because internationally he lost the credibility because as the war is prolonging, most importantly, Russian economy is going down. Russia has declared that any state who actually has an enmity or any kind of statements, or if they don't keep themselves with the friendships or maintain friendship with Russia, they will the Russians will sell oil or gas in rubles. So that's the major problems that Russians are having because after the Bretton Woods agreement, dollar has a place in.
Don't you think that Russia estimated itself very superpower, that they can invade Ukraine within a week, but they are taking much time? Do you think that this is another strategy of the most unpredictable leader of the world, Mr. Vladimir Putin?
I don't think so, because Mr. Putin lost the credibility in international arena, and what it did, that international community is so much united over here. All the nations of Europe, they came together to defend the and Ukraine. Even the Finland, Sweden, and even the Switzerland, the most neutral members of the world community, even they are now deciding to join.
Yeah, I understand.
Join NATO.
I clearly understand, and I'm convinced, Mr. Shibli Islam.
But the thing is that even the any kind of aggression, even the United Nations Charter says that any country will not interfere in any internal matter of a state until that internal matter affects international peace and security.
Let me turn into to Professor Dr. Shahab Enam Khan. He is the specialist and professor of international affairs issues. He writes international affairs, he reads international affairs, he teaches international affairs, and he talks on international affairs. Professor Dr. Shahab Enam Khan, I want to talk to you regarding the Sri Lankan issue right this moment. Rajapaksa's government has collapsed, he has left his house, he is now in a hidden position, and some media claims that naval base in Trincomalee, he took the shelter, and people are still chasing the running political leaders, MPs, even the president families. How do you see the Sri Lankan issues right this moment?
Thank you very much. I think there is a dramatic unfolding of events in Sri Lanka. If you take over the past 1 month, the situation was calm and quiet. I mean, of course, protest was there, but protest was largely peaceful. What happened in last 48 hours? First is there was an incitement from the Rajapaksa's family and the household. So that has created a havoc. The second is the issue of the food price. Food price inflation is more than 50% right now. So that has created a massive resentment and grievances among the mass people. And there is literally a non-functional government in place for the last 1 month, because you have seen that the most of the cabinet resigned. The new cabinet members were not able to deliver any restructuring or plan that would salvage the Sri Lankan economy, and certainly the basics, for an example, medicine is no longer available, energy is no longer available, and people having access to basic services is failing. So literally the country has become a non-functional entity over the past 1 year. Now what is very important at the moment for us to understand that what are the pitfalls that we are going to see from Sri Lanka soon enough. The first thing is Sri Lanka has to go for massive macroeconomic restructuring if they want to reduce the inflation of food and if they want to ensure the energy connectivity. In that case, they look at they don't have a government that will negotiate with IMF or World Bank. In that case, they don't have a finance minister at the moment, they don't have a secretary to the treasury, they don't have any sort of mechanism that can hold some sort of conversation with IMF. They will have to go for austerity. In that case, they have to curtail public services. Most important factor at the moment is they have to ensure that a government is in place. Now, Sajid Premadasa is willing to take over the power, but the problem lies that what kind of salvage mechanism or what kind of macroeconomic governance that he is going to propose is still not in place. So therefore, I don't think that Sri Lanka is going to come out of any sort of come out to some sort of level ground play at any time soon. We have our biggest stake over there. We have lent them money. Of course, as Bangladesh is growing as a regional power, it has its obligation. But the problem lies is how the stability can be ensured by the international community in Sri Lanka. Don't forget that Sri Lanka is a part of the Indo-Pacific geopolitics. It is a part of the geostrategic tussles among the major powers, starting from all the way to United States to India to China. And therefore, we are going to see that more international power exercise over here in the context of economic recovery, in the context of political recovery, and of course, the security as a whole. And but the phenomenal part, apart from that, the unification. I mean, for the first time, we are also witnessing that people who were fragmented in the case of Rajapakshas have come under one umbrella.
Right.
You're now seeing the Sinhali nationalists, Buddhist nationalists, as well as the Tamils, as well as the Muslims, as well as the other religion coming under the same.
Professor Shaban, I'm coming. You love to say that the situation is absolutely out of control. The Rajapaksa political dynasty is over. But I will ask you one more question when I'll be break from the question would be, why United States of America suddenly gave a sanction on the army chief of Sri Lanka. Ladies and gentlemen, we said that we have international panelists from Washington DC, Mr. Norman, from Geneva, Mr. Mark Finard, from Paris, Ibita Seidlova, from Paris, Mahe Achili, and also from Colombo, Mr. Gulshan Pereira, and Marius Dragomir from Austria, Vienna. But due to technical reason, we'll be coming back and we'll be talking with them. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are apologized due to some technical limitations. We are a little bit late to come back. Let me connect with Colombo, Sri Lanka, where there is a foreign direct investment specialist, Mr. Gulshan Pereira. Gulshan, can you please let us know what is the latest in Sri Lanka, because we are receiving many sorts of news that Prime Minister resigned, he has left his house, he is now in Trincomalee, he is now in Trincomalee naval base, and US has given a sanction on the military chief. Thank you. Please describe your situation in Sri Lanka.
As you mentioned, the Prime Minister, the former Prime Minister, has moved to Trincomalee. The Navy Command has already made a statement about 3 hours ago, confirming that he has moved to Trinco, one of the nearby island called Soba Island, for security reasons. Having said that, situation is in Sri Lanka. There's a state emergency. till tomorrow 7 a.m. and it will going to lift around for another 5 hours. So it will be again embarked by 2 p.m. tomorrow. Then 2 hours ago, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa made a special announcement in national TV. Within next 2 to 3 days' time, he's going to appoint a new prime minister and a cabinet. So this is going to be most probably one of the interim strategy. They might be able to bring about 15 to 20 odd people to support. And then with that, they are planning to do about a short-term period of a 1 to 1.5 years period to, govern this. And then probably at the same time, he made an assurance that they will be going back to 19th amendments, which means the majority of the power going to be given to the parliament. So it's not going to no longer going to be the executive president. So these are
Gulshan, huge turmoil, huge changing every moment, so many things happening in Sri Lanka. But I'm sure the Sri Lankan people will face this situation democratically, because United States has already given sanction on the military chief, and the Prime Minister left. Rajapaksa dynasty is going to over, but still the President Gotabaya Rajapaksa is in power. He will definitely seek a different and alternative way which will be accepted by all Sri Lankan people. Please hold for a moment. I want to connect with Paris. Mr. Mahe Achili, he is the expert researcher of CRITS International, the Center for Research and Information for Disarmament and Security. He is joining us from Paris. May I know what is the latest situation of Russia-Ukraine war, or if you don't like to call it war, you call it invasion sometimes. What is the latest situation you observe, Mahe Achili from Paris?
Good evening. Yes, actually, the situation of Russian-Ukraine war changed very fast, and at the time, the Russian operations are focusing on the east of the country. Russian forces making little progress around the city of Izium and in the east, and but strong Ukrainian defense in Donbass region are holding for now. Ukrainian forces pushing Russia troops back around the Kharkiv, and Russian forces are reported to have entered the Mariupol factory. That the BBC says on 4th May. Russia has since refocused its efforts on taking control of the east and south of Ukraine, and they make rapidly gain in the south, with their main objective being the creation of a long corridor between Crimea, and which is annexed in 2014, and areas helped by Russian-backed separatists in Donetsk and Luhansk. But the strong resistance from Ukrainian forces near Mariupol in the west, in Mariupol in the east, significantly slow Russian advances. It means that the Ukrainian army, helped by the Western weapon, is stronger than the Russian source, and the war situation is more complicated than expected.
So Mr. Mahe Achili, you say that a lot of resistance is also coming from the Ukrainian side.
Yes.
Let me talk with Mr. Dragomir, Marius Dragomir. He's joining us from Vienna, Austria. He's the director of Center for Media, Data and Society, CMDS, because he has a long media experience. In Bangladesh, we are getting news from Western media. War has two sorts of news. One is in favor of Russia, one is against Russia. Dragomir, would you please let us know which news we should pick up from the battlefield, from the cyber world, from the digital media world, even from the Western media, Mr. Dragomir?
Of course, that's a very important question, and I think there are many narratives that are fighting to each other in this during this war. What I can say, as an independent researcher of the media, our center has been following the conflict for a while. I was also traveling over the past 2-3 months in Eastern Europe, in the region, not in Ukraine, but in the countries, some of them neighboring Ukraine. So what I can say is that the Russian narrative, the Russian propaganda is entirely misleading, and unfortunately, Russia has a very sophisticated system of propaganda that is multi-layered. They control most of the media at home in Russia. They have a number of media outlets that are targeting the population abroad, such as Russia Today, Sputnik, and others. And then they have many other layers of media outlets that are set up by people connected with Russia, but that are hiding their traces. So sometimes it's very difficult to actually understand or know where the news is coming from. But overall, what we have noticed is that the Russian propaganda is overly misleading and sometimes, in very exaggerated ways. Now, when it comes to other media and Western media, that's a very long story, and you really have to really understand who owns and who runs certain media. But overall, what I can say is that other media outlets that are broadcasting in the world, especially mainstream media, coming not only from Western Europe, but including chains such as Al Jazeera and others, I think they are trusted sources of news if you really want to know the facts about the war in Ukraine.
So, Dragomir, you mean we have to pick up the right news from the right media, not propaganda from the different sorts of organizations. They are trying to favor someone. We need to pick up the right news from the battlefield, from the trusted medias. Thank you very much. Let me welcome a very gentleman, very successful personality, head of arms proliferation of the Geneva Center for Security Policy, GCSP. He's joining us from Geneva, Switzerland, Sir Mark Pinaud. We are apologize for the technical difficulties. Sir, may I know what is the NATO doing? What is the United Nations peacekeeping forces are doing? What is the United Nations Security Council are doing? Why the war is still continuing, sir? Mark Pinaud.
Thank you, Rashid, for the kind invitation, and it's a pleasure to be on your show. Well, of course, you raise a number of very important points. First, we have to realize that because of the existing system of governance, in particular the veto of the permanent members of the Security Council, it was impossible to solve or to anticipate or to prevent this conflict, but also many other conflicts like Syria, Yemen, the Middle East in general, because one of the permanent members uses its right of veto and prevents any collective action, peacekeeping forces to help solve the conflict. NATO, of course, is a defensive alliance. Its members have joined gradually over the years because they wanted to have some protection against what they perceive as a threat coming mostly from Russia. And this threat was, of course, nurtured by the behavior of Russia, its various military operations against Georgia, against the annexation of Crimea, and its pressures, violating the airspace of Baltic countries, etc. And so now Russia has been using this as a pretext for invading Ukraine, saying that there is pressure, there is enlargement of NATO close to our borders, and we need to defend ourselves and therefore to occupy and destroy part of the Ukraine territory. So, of course, there have been responsibilities, collective responsibilities, bad precedents like the US invasion of Iraq. And this explains perhaps why some of the countries from the global south, including Bangladesh, have hesitated to join the West as in a sort of coalition against Russia. They have abstained in the UN General Assembly resolutions. And this is, of course, understandable from their viewpoint, but none of the responsibilities of the US or NATO or the West can excuse the action of invasion, unprovoked invasion and destruction of a country, with so many victims among the civilian population, deliberate targeting of civilians, which are absolute war crimes. There are many investigations going on. So in that respect, it's a collective failure. We haven't been able to prevent this war, and now we are helpless in stopping it. And one aspect is also...
You said the world is helpless, sir. You said world is helpless to stop the war. It's a very strong word you said, but I want to connect with Iveta Svedlova. She is the founder president, Global Biodiversity Protection Organization in Paris.
Good evening.
Sir Mark Finot says that world is helpless to stop this war, but war is facing huge economic crisis, huge environmental crisis. What would be the next? Iveta Svedlova from Paris.
Well, we talk about NATO, so of course I really appreciate this this alliance, because actually it's a defending position, and NATO actually have no program and never have a program to attack Russia. And I think that I'm not for doing any wars. That's not my visions. And I'm more like Jules Verne than Nostradamus. I prefer to be in the position of avant-garde. And well, Russia started the war, so it's Russia who can end the war. And I really not appreciate the position today of Russia and the image of Russia. I think they can have, and they can be much better than they are today in front of the war, and how we'll see them today. I think I prefer to talk about the world solution for all the world, because I have been talking with several actually deciders and or brothers of deciders, and they talk today about all this alliance. You have United Nations, you have Europe, she's getting united. And I think, you see, we have all these arms like atomic bombs, which are very dangerous. Everybody's scared about it when actually Vladimir Putin point on it. And that's supposed to be in control by not many nations, but one government. And but well, my vision is to find solutions, something like G20, but with more leaders, when they meet each other and find global solution for cultural solution, economical solution, fiscal solution for one world, which will be equal for everybody, and that will control the peace the best way. This is my vision. This is what I want to see, and where I want to go. I don't think wars. We need to do wars to have a better life. That's the past. That's the nationalist way of seeing. This is mine. This belongs to me, and that's the average way of seeing things. We are a new generation, new nation, and we have to act differently. We have to be united. That's my way of see today the future for human race.
Catastrophe, nobody expects or nobody desires war, but war happens when dialogue fails, war happens when diplomacy fails, war happens when somebody becomes very aggressive to other nations. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back within few moments. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to late edition program. My name is Rashid Kanchan. We are apologize for some technical difficulties. I want to talk with Professor Shahab Enam Khan. I had a question before the break, that why suddenly United States of America put sanction on the military chief of Sri Lanka, because military was not in any sin even before yesterday?
Oh, thank you. I think first of all, we have to go back. I mean, 2005 to 2009, Gotabaya Rajapaksa was the defense minister and Mahinda Rajapaksa was the president. And both of them were very much involved in suppressing the civil war, or perhaps eliminating the civil war, in which LTTE had to pay the price. And essentially what happens over there is a huge ethnic cleansing, as well as there were the issue of gross human rights violation according to the Western countries, which has led to two very important issues. The first one is the EU removed Sri Lanka from GSP Plus in 2010. But again, they allowed Sri Lanka to gain GSP Plus in 2017 after Sri Lanka implemented 27 human rights obligations and international conventions. But in 2021, the European Parliament passed a resolution by saying there should be a push for advancement on Sri Lankan's human rights obligation and demand for the repeal and replacement of the Prevention of Terrorism Act. Now, this Prevention of Terrorism Act, as well as the issues that has happened in 2009, made the Sri Lankan army to be under the radar of the international conventions. Now, what happened in between? The civil war abuse and the issues of gross human rights violation during the civil war was implicated on Suvendra Silva that time. Now, he is the chief. So, United States imposed a entry ban on the army chief in 2021, in 2020 and 2021, they made the sanction on them. Along with that, two other officers were given sanction.
Do you find any…
Very interesting.
Do you find any possibility that military may take over?
No, I am coming to that. So, the Navy officer was involved in extrajudicial killing according to the US State Department reports, and the army officer was given a death sentence by the Sri Lankan court back in 2010-11, which was repealed by Gotabaya Rajapaksa last year. So, therefore, it shows that the military has a very influential role in the Rajapaksa government, and Rajapaksa government believes for them that military will essentially be an important factor for them to leave the country.
Yeah, I got your point.
As a safe exit.
So, it is a consequence of the…
but I don't think that the military will come to power, for obvious reason that I think our current opposition, Sujit Premadasa, is now given a mandate to prepare for taking oath as the cabinet.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. Let me come to Mr. Mark Finot from Switzerland. He is the head of Arms Proliferation at the Geneva Center for Security Policy, GCSP, sir. I will have one more question to you. Do you think that the war is going to be end soon, because Russia is taking longer time, and some medias are telling that this is the longer version war of Russia in Ukraine? It is maybe a sort of long time invention in Ukraine. Sir, what do you say?
Yes, as my colleague Ashil said, also, this really looks like a semi-military defeat by Russia. You know, the military objectives was to capture the capital, overthrow the government in a few days, control the whole country. Now, we have seen, of course, that this was impossible thanks to the Ukrainian resistance, the bad planning of the Russian operation, logistics problem. Clearly they have lowered their ambitions and their objectives to keep some control of the eastern part, but even that is not even guaranteed. So either we could head towards a sort of war of attrition with casualties again on all sides, including lots of civilians, or there could be the wisest decision that Russia could make would be to accept a ceasefire that would freeze the front line and then gain some time, and there would be probably negotiations about demilitarized zones, so withdrawal of forces, and that would take some time. And Russia could claim that it has not been defeated, because that's the worst nightmare of Russia, to have Ukraine call this a victory. But the worst thing, I believe, and of course we might go for a long war, but or a frozen conflict, a sort of return to
right, sir.
To the beginning.
Right, sir. So yes. your thought also that war is not going to be end soon, sir. Thank you very much for joining with SATV Late Edition. We are humbly apologize for some technical limitations. Thank you again for your contribution, sir. Thank you very much. Let me come to Marius Dragomir. He's a seasoned journalist, media specialist, and he's also a professor of European University. Let me ask you one very straight question, Mr. Dragomir. Do you find that the war is only going on in the battlefield, or the war is also, we can see in the media, in the social media, in the cyber world, even in the economic world, I mean trade war, Mr. Dragomir?
Yes, totally. The answer is a big yes. And we have, you don't have to be a media expert to notice that we are all witnessing and consuming news about what is happening in the region. And I think we can all see that we are witnessing an information war. A war that didn't start with the actual war on the ground in Ukraine, but it has started many years ago. If you look at the spread of the Russian propaganda, I think it has a history that is harking back to more than a decade ago. So definitely, that's the answer to your question is a big yes. I think the more important issue here is how we deal with that, because it is extremely difficult, as I said previously in your show, Rashad, that it's very difficult to actually track some of the sources of misinformation. When you know who owns a media outlet and how they perform, I think that is easier, although not so many people actually know that. But when you don't know anything about, the sources of information that are spread on social media and on the internet at large, then it's really difficult to make up your mind and to actually really understand what is happening. So to summarize, I think, not being informed is really damaging during this time of extreme crisis in Europe and probably very soon across the world.
Right, sir. Mr. Marius Dragomir, thank you very much for such a wonderful explanation of the current situation in all over the world. People are seeing Russia-Ukraine war, economic crisis in Sri Lanka. People are also facing cyber war, trade war, economic slowdown, everything. Let me know the views of Evita Seidlova. She's the founder president, Global Biodiversity Protection Organization from Paris, France. What's your view, Evita?
May I ask exactly the question, my view about what exactly? About the war in Ukraine and Russia?
Yeah.
I think Russia it's losing. But they don't want to accept it because I see Ukraine like a mother, which is in position defending the children. And Russia, I see it like we want to win and we don't want to lose and to be proud like that. Mothers, when they have to defending their own children, they will do anything they survive for it. So I think that's the position today in front of the eyes in the world of of Ukraine, and we are behind them, and we really changed the image who they was. We discover.
I got your point that Russia is not acknowledging that they are killing the civilians, women and children. I think Shibli Islam, assistant professor from Russia University, he will have something to compliment you, or she will have something to tell with you.
Okay.
Well, I think UK Prime Minister Churchill once said that when he was studying Russia, Russia is like two bulldogs, you know, fighting under the rugs, and you can only hear snarling and growling, because you can never know what Russian people are thinking, because it's not it's a monolithic society, it's not a democratic society, it's a complex society. And the most problem that we do have with the authoritarian regime, that the colleagues of the authoritarian top leaders, they are frightened to tell or communicate the situations of the ground, because they always say positive things about the ground. And the biggest mistake that Putin did by invading Ukraine, that even the most non-neutral members of the of the world, like Finland, Switzerland, Sweden, now they are thinking about, you know, joining the NATO. When back in 2017, only 21% Finns are, you know, they are favoring to join NATO, but now more than 60% Finn wants to join NATO. So by attacking Ukraine, he is actually
helped
uniting the Western
NATO to
uniting.
Come in a bigger shape.
Back in
Thank you.
1939, Russia actually attacked
Thank you,
Finland.
Shibli Islam. I want to come one more time. I want to come Mahe Acheli. He's the expert researcher of GRIDS International from Paris. Would you mind to tell us within 1 minute that how the world leaders are responding or reacting with Putin's invasion to Ukraine, because world is experiencing more than 2.5 months war?
Sorry, sir. Can you explain more, please?
What do you think how Europeans are responding this war?
I think yes. I think European is responsible, but we don't forget that Russia is the makes the aggression of Ukraine, and
that's pretty sure. European people are peaceful people. They don't want war in Europe, even their neighboring countries. Thank you, Mahe Acheli. For last one more time, I want to hear from Gulshan Pereira. Please let us know, are you going to expect good days in future soon, or it will take long time, or it will take huge investment of other countries or donor agencies to help you out? Gulshan,
as I explained 2 hours ago, President has already made a commitment, saying that he's going to go back to the 19th Amendment, which means the excellence power going to be reduced and will be given to the Parliament. So it will be an interim government. So in this situation, for the next 1 to 1.5 years period, the interim government should come and then execute all the necessary short-term and the mid-term and the long-term strategies on the financial crisis. That's what the protesters want, because they don't want 225 parliament members to be there. They want to bring fresh blood and it's a clean slate. And with that, I would say within another 1.5 years period time, certainly Sri Lanka could look at and embark on an export-oriented industrial strategy, which is going to be very lucrative to the entire world. Because with the alliance that they have with Japan, Korea, and India, as well as in China, as a destination hub for production.
So, Gulshan Pereira, including Gulshan Pereira, I want to give my special gratitude, thanks for joining with us, Professor Shah Benam Khan, International Affairs, Jahangirnagar University, Shibli Islam,
Assistant Professor, Rajshahi University, Mr. Mark Finaud, Head of Arms Proliferation at the Geneva Center for Security Policy, CGSP, Geneva, Evita Saidlova, Founder President, Global Biodiversity Protection Organization, Paris, France, Mahe Acheli, Expert Researcher at GRIDS International from France, Marius Dragomir from Vienna, Austria, Director of the Center for Media and Data and Society, and Gulshan Pereira, Foreign Direct Investment Specialist, Colombo. We are extremely apologize for the technical limitations, what happened today, what we have been experienced today. We'll be talking soon. Ladies and gentlemen, special thanks to all of our viewers as well. Good night.